everyone. Nice to be here. As they said, my name is Chase Coleman. I'm a data scientist and an economist at UMA. And so today we're going to talk about recourse and DeFi tail risk. So, when we talk about the types of things that we all do on the internet, trade at 10x leverage or do these other things, when we think about the risks, these are what the risks we think we're exposed to are. The price goes down, we get liquidated, everyone's sad. It turns out that there's kind of a lot more underlying risk. So this is the kind of front page of Wrecked. If you haven't gone there, it's a little bit scary. Oh, wow, that's a lot louder. So you can see some of the recent hacks that have happened, Wormhole, the Sifu scandal, et cetera, et cetera. So there's kind of two classes of risk in DeFi. The first is kind of the type of risk that we typically are thinking about, which is this market risk. Prices go up, prices go down, people get liquidated, companies fail, et cetera, et cetera. But there's this other type of risk that we're kind of really exposed to in crypto, which is, what I'm going to call tail risk, which is, hacks or exploits or some kind of a system failure that results in the loss of a lot of money. So as DeFi works to become more mainstream, we should think seriously about, what are these tail risks and how can we minimize them? Do you want your grandma exposed to things like Wormhole? I don't. So the way that we're going to think about this is we're going to kind of, take the typical crypto approach, which is put things into a trilemma. And this trilemma is going to have three components. And so it's going to describe financial systems. The first is, a financial system could have anonymity. And anonymity is, anyone can interact with anyone in a trustless manner, whether or not you know who your counterparty is. And we've kind of got some really great advertising going on right now in Canada, so we've put that front and center. The second is instant finality. So you think about, how fast does a particular financial system process transactions? On my, on my brokerage account, if I go ahead and I buy a stock, it shows up in my account immediately. On the blockchain, if you get liquidated, that happens, as soon as the block is mined. So this is the second property, instant finality. And the third is recourse, which is the ability to dispute the validity of a particular transaction and then seek reparation. So in the TradFi world, that takes, the form of going to court. And companies spend millions and millions and millions of dollars paying lawyers to seek recourse for them. There's a few projects that are thinking about these types of things in DeFi already. So, plug for our project, UMA. We're an optimistic oracle. There are things like Nexus Mutual that provides insurance for when you use different protocols. And then there's other things similar like Claros that are actually like a resolution dispute, like it's literally a court system for the blockchain. So, I think people recognize that we should be thinking about this recourse, and there we go. So we're going to use these three properties, these three properties of the trilemma to think about what does traditional finance look like and what does DeFi look like. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. So traditional finance is the combination of instant finality and recourse. So if we think about this, again, going back to this purchasing an equity example, when I purchase an equity from my broker, it shows up in my account nearly immediately. And now there's things happening behind the scenes that maybe make it not so instant, but from my perspective, it's instant, and I can sell that as soon as I have it in my account. Now, if the stock doesn't show up, I can sue my brokerage and I can say, hey, you committed to give me this thing, and it didn't show up in my account. But being able to seek this type of recourse requires that I know who they are, and they know who I am, and that there's a judicial system that we're willing to go to. DeFi is very different. So DeFi thinks about, we want anyone to be able to interact with anyone, so we're prioritizing anonymity. And up until now, we've put a lot of focus on versions of this where we have instant finality. So if you think about a liquidation, I, Chase Coleman, am able to liquidate any position that shows up as under-collateralized on any of the lending platforms without knowing who was under-collateralized and without them knowing who I am. And then as soon as that liquidation happens, that transaction is finalized. And so, then the question becomes, well, what happens if that liquidation was performed at an inaccurate price? What do we do? And it turns out that the answer right now is you're shit out of luck. You sit there, you wish you had, someone liquidated you at a price much lower than it was supposed to be, and you lost a lot of your money. And that's maybe not the, that's maybe not the best way to do things. And so, devs, do something. So what types of things can developers do about this? And the first thing, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but also kind of serious. Like, we can just say, well, maybe recourse doesn't matter. A system without recourse is incompatible with the majority of today's, TradFi system. But that might actually not be a problem. DeFi adds a lot of other characteristics. We saw it added anonymity and other things, and a lot of us value those properties. So it might not be worth the developer time developing answers to recourse. The second thing is we could do more of what we at UMA have been calling slow DeFi, which is maybe we don't want our transaction to be finalized as soon as the block is processed. And so in this version of DeFi, we might think about, instead of having anonymity and instant finality, let's have anonymity and recourse. And when you think about the types of things that you do, I think, this high-frequency trading, thinking about liquidation, those things require instant finality. But if you're doing something like betting on the Super Bowl, maybe you're willing to sit for a couple of hours after the answer has come out in order to ensure that there's not a hack or some other issue. And so thinking about, what types of contracts require instant finality and what types of contracts need more emphasis on recourse, I think is important. And for reasons I don't have time to get into today, it turns out that slow DeFi doesn't have to actually be slow. But I'm happy to talk to people about that over coffee or beer. And then the last thing is, developers can be doing is continuing to innovate. So what can we build as a community? Lots of us are developers here. Lots of us are members of different communities. What can we do to ensure that either there is more recourse or kind of recognize we don't want recourse and, cut it off? At UMA, we've had some, I think, kind of neat ideas. So we had a member of our team develop something called a protected token. So I'm going to post these slides on my Twitter account, and you should all read that article. I think it's quite clever. And then we've talked a lot about insured oracles, which again, for reasons of time, I'm not going to get into today, but I'm happy to talk, at length about this over coffee or beer. And, I hope that we do think about this seriously and we take this problem and we either find solutions or actively decide not to pursue it. That's all I'm going to say today. That gives some time back to everyone. I have questions. There's links to UMA and Across. Those are the projects I'm involved with. Across is an L2 bridge built on some of the optimistic oracle ideas from UMA. And, as a spoiler alert for when we grab beer, it uses something close to the insured oracle. You can find me on Twitter at BlackBoxEconomist. I've written more about this topic. And additionally, there is a POAP that our community has created for all of the UMA speakers. So if you download the POAP app, the secret word is chase data, and you'll get a POAP with my face on it. So that's all I have. Thanks, everyone.